When it comes to tiering your cakes, it's imperative that each of the tiers is separately dowelled to ensure that the cake supports the weight of the one directly below it. Just don't even think about trying to stack them directly on top of one another in the hope that the cakes are going to survive. They will not. And it's a great way of ensuring that the tiers themselves can be nicely leveled up. So if you do have any undulations in the tops of the cakes and they are a bit uneven, this is the perfect way to ensure that when you stack the cake, it's nice and straight. The doweling rods that we produce are plastic rods that come in packs of 12, and you'll probably need a couple of packs to do a 4-tier cake. Now, to stack them directly on top of one another, with the first doweling rod, you insert carefully into the cake, right in the centre. And you'll notice as I insert the doweling rod, I'm twisting it as it goes down. Now, this is for a reason. If you think about the boring action of a drill as it goes down, it creates the smallest, neatest hole and doesn't pull any of the icing away. And if particularly you're using a fruit cake, it will help to avoid you catching any of the big lumps of fruit or cherries inside. So twist the doweling rod as it goes all the way down to the base of the cake. Now, the idea is that we're going to create these or place these doweling rods in the cake that will all then sit nice and flush with the surface of the cake within the diameter of the tier that's going above it. So this cake will actually sit on the support of the doweling rods rather than the surface of the cake itself. So when the first doweling rod has gone in, take a pencil and mark it completely flush with where it sits on the surface of the cake. And then carefully, if you position your fingers either side, carefully again twist as you bring that doweling rod back out of the cake, you'll minimise the hole. This is a great test. If you smell your doweling rod at this stage, it does a couple of things. If you've got a number of cakes that you're working on during the course of the week and you've covered lots of them and you're thinking, was that chocolate, was that lemon? It's a great way to just double check the flavour of the cake that you've covered. And the second thing is, if you've made this cake and covered it and decorated it, it's another great way of ensuring that for absolutely no reason that the cake will have gone bad or gone with any fermentation or anything like that inside. So it's a double check of the cake itself that the quality is still great and you know what flavour it is. Line the doweling rods up so that the one that you've marked is in the centre with all of their bases touching a nice firm product. And then with a ruler, lay that across the doweling rods so that they're all nice and flush. And then mark with a pencil so that you've marked 6 doweling rods all at the same height as the central one that was positioned in the middle of the cake. Now, keep them all facing the same way. Take some heavy duty scissors that we've got in the range, just for this purpose, and then holding the body of the doweling rod nice and close to the cut, carefully snip the doweling rod down and repeat with all of them till you've got the nice length of the doweling rods straight and true. Now you really need to come down at eye level to ensure that each of these doweling rods are now perfectly straight across the top. And if any are slightly taller or slightly shorter than the others, you level them all up. Because the idea is that when these doweling rods go back into the cake, they all need to be at exactly the same height so that when the next tier sits on it, they're all sitting on even stilts of doweling rods. So trim them all together, and when they're all the same height, you bring the cake back to you, insert the first one in the centre, press it right the way down, and then position the other 5 around the outside of that first one. And you'll see that some are maybe slightly higher than the actual icing and some are actually slightly lower. And what it's doing is this is levelling up the cake so that when we transfer this tier onto here, it'll sit completely nice and flush. So when those doweling rods are all in, you'll see that the level of the icing here is slightly lower than it is over in the centre. Now, a lot of people, or what I've seen people do, is take the doweling rods out and trim them all down so they're flush with the icing, which defeats the object of actually levelling, using the doweling rods to level the cake up prior to the next tier going on top. So from this point, get a little bit of the icing with your palette knife and smooth that over the surface of the cake. And then with a sharp knife, just ease this cake towards you, release it from the board. And this cake will be sitting on its own baseboard underneath, and then carefully position that on the top of the tier below. And then what you'll see is this cake now sits completely flush, completely level on this base tier. And what you want to do is come down and look at the cake at eye level, straight on, to get it nice and straight, and then sideways to ensure it's nice and positioned evenly on the tier below. And using this low-level turntable is fantastic for this job because you can really see the cake from all angles. And then once it's nicely in position, use a little bit of royal icing on the back of the cake to seal the ribbon in position. And it's the ribbon as it comes around the cake that will help to ensure that the tier is left completely flush with the one below. So ribbon scissors. And there you create the perfect professional finish on doweling and stacking your celebration cake.